everybody's super busy. Thank you, Holly, for joining us. I know everybody's super busy right now, but this is a very important topic, so thank you for chiming in. Just wanted to let everybody know that this session will be recorded. Thank you, Holly, and we'll be putting together some of the highlights and notes and communications from today's meeting later on in a recap that you'll see. And wanted to encourage everybody, if you don't have the option to talk right now or can't turn your camera on, if you have any questions, anything like that, jump into the chat. We'll be able to monitor that and get some of your, make sure we're answering your questions. So in tradition of our safety forum, we've got a great presentation today. We've got John, I'm pronouncing it Dehunsi, is that correct, John?
Dehunsi.
And he's a psychiatric medical health nurse practitioner with the Office of Occupational Medicine and Nursing, and he's got an awesome presentation put together today on a very important and impactful subject matter, and that is suicide prevention and awareness. And we're going to have him jump into his presentation and go over, things we need to know, things we can possibly identify, maybe resources that we can use to, help mitigate some of these mental health issues. But prior to us doing that, I did want to just open up the room like we do in tradition and see, hey, from our last meeting that we had, are there anything or is there anything while in your work day out there on the job site or in your inner office that you've noticed that was a safety thing and or a safety issue, and you addressed it and was able to prevent something, possibly catastrophic for happening? So let's open it up to the group real quick, and let's get into a discussion on anything that you've noticed, anything that you possibly may want to let others be made aware of when it comes to safety, so that we can really take safety proactively. So, because if you're not proactive with the safety, you will be reactive to it. So opening up the floor. Anybody got anything out there that you want to discuss, talk about? Let us know. Go ahead and unmute yourselves and we can go ahead and do that. I have one just to kick it off. So battery storage units are extremely heavy. And so I attempted to take something that was 300 plus pounds, me and one other individual, and try and move this thing by ourselves. And because we were limited on manpower, it was only the two of us, we tried our hardest to get it done. But at the end of it all, I hurt my back. And so just be careful that, you're bending at the knees. Don't take on any weights or workloads that you're struggling with, because if you're struggling at 10 feet of moving it, you're going to struggle at 20 feet of moving it. So get some help, come up with a different way of moving it. And like I said, bend at the knees, because I'm a little tight today. Anybody else got anything out there? You guys are making it easy on us this morning. It's going to be a fast session. Okay, well, before we have John jump in once again, I did want to just do a recap of last month's meeting when we discussed the 2024 scope of our schedule for the forum, what we'll have on schedule starting from January through December. And so here in just a moment, let me pull up that calendar. I thought I had it right here. So right now we have on calendar. Now these forum objectives or subject matters are to be determined, right? This is something we discussed with the group, decided it was best, but they're subject to change depending on the need of you all, right? We want to, here at IEC Rocky Mountain, make sure that we're addressing your needs as a contractor or industry partner. So if there's a subject matter you'd like to see on our schedule, or you would like to help facilitate or participate in, let you know, I'll get my email down into the chat so you can get a hold of me. But we'd love to hear from you. So what we have scheduled for January 24th, is like we've been doing for the past, say, almost 10 years. We really want to start the year off with an OSHA update. So we'll bring OSHA in to talk about 2023 recordables, what's kind of been the big hitters, also to hear from them kind of what's in their crystal ball as far as focus for 2024, so that we can bring that back to y'all contractors and industry partners with a strategy to make sure compliance is transparent. So OSHA update in January. Then we're going to talk about, because February is the coldest month that we have here in Colorado, we're going to talk about job site heat, and with that, air quality, because you're in kind of sometimes confined spaces. You've got some type of fuel energy that has an exhaust, or it blows out heat. You got to be careful of your surroundings. And so we'll talk about job site heat and air quality. In March, we're going to discuss the shared worker or borrowed worker or temp worker, and what we need to be sure that we're communicating when we bring on a temporary worker, as far as, you know, job site safety analysis, the needs to know, right, on what the scope of work is and its safety hazards. So it's a good way to communicate, especially if you're doing a borrowed worker program, that whoever stepping in onto your job site, even on a temporary basis, needs to be up to speed on the safety protocols. And in April, we're going to go through Arc Flash and an update or an overview of the NFPA 70E, just to be made aware of what, you know, proper signage is, how to identify hazards, things like that. And then in May, we've got the OSHA stand down for fall protection. So we'll bring in either like ladder ergonomics, or we'll bring in fall arrest systems, or some type of lanyard or safety product to really help out with our fall safety. Still the number one hitter, right, in our industry is falls. So it's important that we give that some focus every year. And then in June, we're going to jump back into OSHA. We're going to jump back into heat, right? But we're going to do that with OSHA, right? OSHA's got an awesome outline and guidance for OSHA heat. So we'll bring OSHA back in again to talk about their OSHA heat standard. Hopefully in July, we'll be able to determine a awesome place for us to go visit, as far as a facility or a place of gathering, or a job site, right? That's a really big, where the scope of safety and communications and coordinations is vast, right? Where it's a large area of people, or it's a large scope of work. So we'll do a facility tour for that, maybe like I said, a job site or a stadium, or some type of structure or environment that you don't normally get to see, that really has an intricate and laid out safety policy and process. Then we're going to get into confined space in August. We'll talk about mental health again next September. It's an annual thing. In October of next year, we have on plan temp power and lighting. We did decide that in November, normally we don't have safety forums in November because of the safety schedule and things, or not safety schedule, because of the holiday schedule, excuse me, and it can be kind of difficult for people to arrange time to get into the safety forum. But we did decide that would be the date in November 20th, that we'll take a look at 2025 scheduling. Normally we would do it in, say, August, but we moved it down a little bit because there was important safety topics that we wanted to hit before the scheduling. So scheduling for 2025 will happen in November. And then in December, we'll get into winter driving and fleet management, right? The weather's not very well. Let's make sure our vehicles are strapped down, right? Let's make sure there's proper maintenance and rules of the road, things like that, are being adhered to for safety. So any questions on 2024 schedule? Do y'all think, as our contractor members and industry partners that those topics are on point. Anything that I'm missing out there? John, what are you seeing out there? What are some big hitters out there that we could focus in on? I know we're going to talk about suicide prevention today, but is there anything that you're seeing over there, that is really, escalating as far as needing a focus?
Well, one of other than mental health and suicide prevention, heat is the big thing right now, especially with many individuals working outside in the heat. And so there's been a lot of heat related fatalities. And so that is one of the big pushes, right? Making sure that employers are aware of, how much time employees are spending out in the heat, whether it's traveling to work, right? And they're exposed to heat, and now at work, they're exposed to heat, right? So it's almost like a double hit, and the employer may not be aware of that commute, which again increases their risk to heat exhaustion as well as a fatality related to heat. So that is one of the big pushes right now.
Awesome. So I'm glad to see we've got that on deck. Then that's good to see we're on point there. Very, very cool. Well, thank you. And then everybody, introducing you to John. Thank you so much. I was able to reach out a little while ago to OSHA and this very important topic, and John reached back out to me and had a really awesome presentation. And it's great to see his background because he could talk with confidence about what you see and kind of some strategies and links and being able to identify things when it comes to suicide prevention and really it's awareness, right? Awareness will happen before prevention. And so we really want to open our minds, right? This is a hard subject matter to talk about. I'm pretty sure that everyone in attendance in today's forum has either dealt with that somebody directly or they know somebody that's had to deal with this horrible thing called suicide. And it's super impactful when things like that happen, and there could have been so many different things that could have been done to identify or reach out for help or somehow connect with that individual to see what can be done, to bring on another day. So thank you so much, John, for joining us. Looking forward to your presentation. And I'm just going to go ahead and pass it over to you and get this started.
Okay, and can everyone hear me? Yes, okay, excellent. All right. So good morning, everyone. My name is John DeHunsey. I'm a psychiatric mental health nurse practitioner with the Occupational Safety and Health Administration. And so this presentation today will focus on mental health and suicide prevention. Okay. So objectives for this presentation today include increasing awareness and understanding of mental health issues and suicide prevention, providing tools for recognizing signs of distress, promoting self-care as well as stress management, and enhancing communication and support networks. So first, what is mental health? So mental health encompasses our social, psychological, and emotional well-being, and it is a vital component of our overall wellness. Social health is the extent to which we create meaningful interpersonal connections and relationships. Psychological health pertains to how we internalize and evaluate experiences throughout our life, while emotional health is the extent to which individuals react and express outwardly, both verbally and non-verbally. Mental health can be affected by many facets of our life. It affects how we think, how we feel, how we act, and helps determine how we handle stress, which can be especially true in a workplace setting. So our mental health can be affected by two avenues. One is managed experiences such as death, divorce, social isolation, as well as job-related stress. The second are genetic predispositions passed down from blood relatives. So how do we know if it's a time-limited difficult experience versus a true mental health disorder? So the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual for Mental Health Disorders states that to be considered a true disorder, it must negatively impact an individual across multiple settings, which include personal settings, social settings, as well as occupational settings. So here we have the common types of mental health disorders, which include mood disorders, major depressive disorder, anxiety-related disorders, such as generalized anxiety disorder, stress-related disorders, such as acute stress disorder, as well as post-traumatic stress disorder, substance use disorders, such as alcohol use disorder and opioid use disorder. So data from the CDC reports that death from suicide ranked as the 12th leading cause of death for people of all ages in 2020. Approximately 45,979 people died by suicide in the United States. That is one death every 11 minutes. In individuals aged 35 to 54, suicide ranked as the 5th leading cause of death. This age range is important because this is the average age of most working adults in the United States. So now when we talk about mental health in construction, so depression and suicide rates are higher among construction workers, including electricians, compared to the general population. According to the CDC, construction workers were 53% more likely to die by suicide compared to all other occupations. Substance use is also prevalent, with studies estimating 18 to 23% of construction workers struggle with drug or alcohol addiction. Factors like job security, irregular working hours, and hazardous working conditions, and a male-dominated culture that discourages emotional expression may also contribute to poor mental health outcomes. Within the electrical industry, 37% of electricians have reported symptoms of depression compared to 10% in all other professions. Okay, and this is statistics from the Journal of Occupational Health. Electricians also have a higher risk of substance abuse, with 25% admitting to heavy drinking. And this comes from a survey study conducted by the Brotherhood Electrical Workers Mental Health Survey. They also report that stress among electricians was rated at 68% in this survey, anxiety 62%, and depression 54%. And some of the key factors that impact mental health within the electrical industry include high pressure troubleshooting. So what are factors that may influence mental health disorders as well as suicide risk? So there is no one single cause for the development of a mental health disorder or even being at risk for suicide. However, there are factors that increase this risk. Some of these factors include biological factors, such as genetic predispositions, as well as biological changes of our body. Psychological factors, which may include abuse, trauma, neglect, discrimination, and self-esteem. Clinical factors may include seeking help when needed and the availability and access to resources. Social factors include social economic status, education, employment, social supports. Environmental factors include lack of access to resources, or adequate housing and basic needs. It's important to note that not all risk factors are modifiable, but there are some strategies and techniques that can help reduce the psychosocial stressors that can influence some of these factors. So what are some warning signs related to mental health as well as suicide prevention? So warning signs for mental health include changes in behavior. So noticeable changes in an individual's sleeping pattern. Maybe they're sleeping a little more on the job. Appetite. So decrease in appetite or an increase in appetite. Energy levels and social withdrawal. So this is that employee who is usually sits at the lunch table with employees and has a good time, and now they are removing themselves from a lot of those social situations. Loss of interest in activities once enjoyed, decreased motivation, or lack of concentration. Physical symptoms may include unexplained headaches or stomach aches. And then substance misuse. So an increased use of alcohol or drugs may be utilized as a coping mechanism. And what are the warning signs related to suicide risk? So verbal cues. Individuals may express feelings of hopelessness, talking about wanting to die, or feeling like a burden to others. Behavioral changes, which may include engaging in risky behaviors, right? And this can also occur on the job, right? Doing things that do not adhere to the protocol. Giving away possessions. Now, giving away possessions can happen in many different forms. Some of the newer trends that are being seen with the advancement of social media is an individual selling valuable belongings or personal keepsakes, or even withdrawing from social interactions. The same with mental health disorders. And again, this can also include, right, in that social media realm, they're very active and now they are less active. Emotional signs, which can include intense sadness, irritability, or a sudden improvement after a period of depression. And that is one of the key symptoms of an individual that may be attempting to commit suicide, right? Is when that burst of energy occurs. And then a preoccupation with death. So frequent discussions or fascination with death, dying, or suicide. Okay, so it's important to recognize these signs in oneself as well as in others. So there are some protective factors that can help prevent suicide. And some of these protective factors include a strong social support. So that network of employees that can check up on an individual. Also, access to mental health resources. So employers can help with this by encouraging individuals to utilize the resources that are provided, such as the Employee Assistance Program. And then effective coping skills. So discussing strategies and ways to reduce stressors at work. So what would that approach look like? So addressing mental health and suicide prevention can be a complex task which requires employers as well as industry leaders to have a level of awareness and sensitivity about these topics. So the big question is, how do we go about making long-lasting change to decrease the rates in the future? First is to normalize understanding and asking. Next would be educating, providing support and resources. And finally would be building partnerships and preventative measures. So to understand the concerns and needs of workers, informal discussions with employees to bring awareness to the issue while using appropriate conversation is imperative. In phase one, strategies to consider include normalizing mental health conversations and reducing stigma, understanding the positive impacts, acknowledging mental health and understanding how your role can help. And finally, asking the hard questions. So the first step is to normalize conversations about mental health and suicide risk, which helps to create a safe place for coworkers as well as employees who are suffering in silence or are afraid to reach out for assistance. Nonverbal communication is going to be just as important as verbal communication, as it can increase trust and clarity. Then bringing awareness to mental health and suicide prevention can help to bring many positive factors to light. Many individuals suffer in silence because there may be a belief that it's only happening to me. As topics about mental health and suicide continue to be discussed, employees may feel more comfortable utilizing positive coping strategies and resources to address mental health concerns. This will then lead to an increased work productivity as well as meaningful contributions in the industry. As coworkers, supervisors, or industry leaders of someone who may be dealing with a mental health concern or is at risk for suicide, it's important to know how to support the individual. It's important to be there to listen to the individual without judgment and offer support and provide resources to get help. Remember, you can provide empathy without attempting to fix the problem. Okay. Here's some key language that can assist you in having some of these tough conversations with employees or coworkers, as well as language to stay away from. So I'll highlight just a few of these. Such things as identifying an individual by their disorder, such as your bipolar, can be very stigmatizing. Instead, we encourage individuals to be identified as having the disorder. So if it's disclosed, this or John has bipolar disorder or Kim has bipolar disorder, rather than labeling somebody by their disorder. Okay. And then terms such as stop feeling sorry for yourself. You need to snap out of it. And I know how you feel. I know how you feel is a very important one to highlight because, again, no individual can assume the responsibility or assume to be in another individual's state of mind, right? We are influenced by our environment. We are influenced by our social settings and by our personal relationships. Okay, so some of the supportive language to utilize includes, I'm here for you. You're important to me. And let me know if you need to talk. As well as come and talk to me at any time. Again, that provides that open door for that individual who may not initially feel supported, but is open to talking. When encountering an individual who may be at risk for suicide, which is one of the biggest, which is one of the highest rates within this industry, it's important to not avoid asking the difficult questions. Because again, this may make the difference between an actual attempt versus an individual getting the help that they need. So ask directly about suicide. Are you having suicidal thoughts? Are you thinking about hurting yourself? And if an affirmative answer is given, the individual should not be left alone and be directed to appropriate resources. Now that we have discussed normalizing and the awareness of mental health and suicide risk, now we are going to talk about implementing phase two. So implementing a phase two would include providing education related to mental health and suicide prevention and providing ongoing support and resources. So industry leaders as well as employers can be successful in the education aspect by generating emails discussing the importance of mental health and suicide prevention. Continuing to provide awareness about topics related to mental health and suicide prevention in company newsletters. Highlight national weeks dedicated towards mental health awareness, which again, mental health awareness month is the month of May, and then suicide prevention, it occurs in the month of September. And also including mental health and suicide prevention into monthly meetings can also be a very effective way to increase awareness. Displaying suicide prevention posters with resources in areas where employees assemble can be very helpful to increase access to resources in a discreet manner. Oh, excuse me, sorry. Okay, resources. So I've highlighted here the suicide prevention poster, which is published on the OSHA website. So this can be printed and also displayed in areas where employees frequent most. And it just highlights those 5 steps at helping to prevent suicide, suicide prevention. Next, we have our OSHA's workplace stress page. And again, this page provides a wealth of information for employers, employees, as well as industry leaders. We have such things as myth busters, guides for how employers can address mental health concerns with an employee, as well as how to support another coworker or employee who may be at risk for mental health concern, as well as suicide risk. Then we have some of the national resources. Of course, 911 is always available. We have 988, which is a suicide in crisis lifeline. That number is very important because you can utilize that through text as well as through calling. Okay, employee assistance programs, of course, 311 for local resources, telepsychiatry, which we know has become a big piece since COVID-19 has kind of entered our atmosphere, and as well as mobile crisis teams. So as we talk about phase 3, this would include engaging local organizations as well as mental health professionals to provide discussions, webinars, and presentations about mental health, such as this one. All right, and the goal would be to kind of help to foster a culture that promotes a mentally healthy work environment. Introducing preventative measures into workplace policies, such as mental health and suicide prevention education within orientations, as well as within a new hiring process, helps to create a culture of priority as it pertains to suicide risk and mental health. Other preventative measures may include generating focus groups to discuss psychosocial job-related stressors. And this can help to identify other factors to consider that may have not been thought of previously. Okay, so the role of the coworker. So as a coworker, you may be in the best position to help recognize some of these warning signs. One would include reaching out if you notice a change has occurred in an individual, just asking them how have they been doing overall. See if that bridges that gap and opens that conversation. And then listening without judgment and encouraging them to seek help. If you feel as though you are unable to help that individual, but you are concerned, you can always let a supervisor know, right? And it does not necessarily mean discussing a personal conversation, but just making them aware of, I'm concerned about this individual. As an individual, it's important to identify your stressors. What are the things that may trigger stress as well as anxiety. Once you know your triggers, there may be ways to avoid those triggers or even ways to manage them better. Utilizing healthy coping mechanisms when you feel overwhelmed. Taking a few minutes out of your day to relax and rejuvenate. Even a short break will make a difference. I always try to encourage individuals when they are eating lunch to not eat lunch within their workspace, right? That is personal time. You should separate that from the work relationship that you have. And then connecting with loved ones. When you're spending time with loved ones, it helps to foster positive emotions and decrease stress. And this may even include coworkers. As we know, some individuals will work with a coworker for 10 years, 20 years. And then creating a strong support network. This can make the difference when trying to maintain a mentally healthy work environment, right? This may not necessarily be the employee that works right next to you, but could be someone that you check in with on a routine basis once a week, okay, where work is not the topic of discussion. Okay, so now here are some tips for responding in the moment. So if there is a potential risk or you are noted, you have a concern with a coworker, the first step is to identify those warning signs, right? Have you noticed changes? Okay, is this individual appearing tired, distant, more sad, irritable, or angry? Okay, and then taking any thoughts of suicide or thoughts of a mental health concern seriously, not dismissing these thoughts. Okay, and then what can you say to support this individual, right? What can help generate an area of concern where that person can now reach out for help? So it's important to stick to the facts, right? Not attempting to add any feelings or your own biases. State what has concerned you about the recent changes in this individual. And then remembering non-verbal body language is going to be just as important as verbal language. And then confidentiality, ensuring that you're having this conversation in a private setting. And then, of course, avoiding non-stigmatizing language. So using language that is supportive, using a calm tone. So something such as, I hear you when you say you don't care about anything anymore. I've also noticed changes in your demeanor at work. I want you to know I am here for you. Okay. Something like that may generate an individual opening up. Now, if they do open up and they are providing you with more information, the goal here would be to reflect what they have told you, summarizing it in your own words to show that you're listening and ensure that you have a true understanding of what they have told you. And then that final step would be providing them with the resources to get help as well as seek assistance. Okay. And these are my references. And then were there any questions, comments, concerns that anybody had?
No, I don't have any questions, John. Thank you so much for that. Great, impactful stuff. Has anybody out there, as far as our contractor members and industry partners, have y'all noticed things like that? What are some things maybe you do in-house? Do you have kind of a mental health checklist, within your organization, something that, a resource maybe, something that y'all are using or have? Marilyn has a question, actually. Go ahead and jump in, Marilyn. What's your question?
Hi, Paul. Thanks. John, thank you so much for your presentation. Incredibly timely, not just because this is Suicide Awareness and Prevention Month, but late yesterday, I received an email among my peer network of other IEC executive directors across the country. and it's a small chapter, and they were reaching out because one of their contractor members lost an employee to suicide, and the contractor was trying to the association was trying to help the contractor figure out what resources could be shared to bring employees together. So after the suicide occurred, and so I sent the link to this presentation, and we certainly can share it out, or sent the link about the meeting, and then also reminded them about 988, which you mentioned. Is 988 a resource for individuals, should they experience suicide in their network, to help them know what to do next, just in terms of sharing? So, I know today's focus is on awareness and prevention, but oh my gosh, unfortunately, it still happens. And so what can we do as leaders to make sure that if someone comes to us, we have the immediate right resources to share with them? And is 988 the best resource?
So 988 is definitely the best national resource, because we know that, right, when an individual dies by suicide, that it doesn't necessarily just affect their immediate family, but it affects the individuals they worked with, right? Their supervisors, the last person that was on the job with them. So yeah, that now becomes a stress factor for that individual. So 988 is a great national resource. Now, depending on the company, you may have EAP programs. So that would be a great resource if you do have an EAP program to encourage that. And not just encourage, reach out to EAP, because there is some stigma related to that, right? Is this going to be tracked? Is this confidential? So, just honing or putting down that point that those services are there to help in immediate need, and they are traditionally confidential. This isn't something that is tracked. This isn't something that will be placed on a performance evaluation or hinder any promotional opportunities, which again is one of the big stigmas that we're trying to remove when those services are available. Okay.
Great. Yeah, thank you, John. And I'm glad you mentioned EAP, because, during COVID, particularly, it was quite a popular number for employers to be sharing. And I think it's a good reminder that EAP is with us all the time.
Did we cut off? Is that, are we, I'm sorry, is that all you wanted to share, Marilyn? Thank you so much for sharing that. Does anybody else have anything that they would like to share, or something you've noticed maybe in the past, or something we could be made aware of when it comes to identifying or addressing maybe something you've noticed out there when it comes to mental health or suicide?
I just wanted to share one other thing with John. And some of you experienced it at the AGC cornhole tournament that happened a few weeks ago. We had a contractor that presented a board that they used at the cornhole tournament, and they asked them to hammer a nail into the board if you had ever been exposed to or impacted by suicide. And at the end of the afternoon, the board was filled with nails. So I think, to your point, John, it is way more prevalent than we even realize. Sometimes we don't even know that we've been with someone who, is in a situation that, for whatever reason, felt they couldn't reach out. And I thought it was a very profound visual to hammer this nail into a board, and just within a few hours it was filled, just as an activity to to bring awareness to how much individuals can be impacted. So, and that's really all I have. I just thank you for your time today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you, Marilyn, for sharing that information. Very impactful. We will be getting out a recap of today's session with the recording. And if it's cool, John, I know you sent me your presentation last week prior to some edits. Would it be possible for you to send me your presentation? And
Yes.
I would love to get it out to this group so that they can take a look at some of the resources, hit the website. We'll send that out in our recap as well. But all of our contractors and industry on the phone today, perhaps this is something that you can make some printouts of, put on your desk, include into your toolbox topic discussions amongst your crews out there in the field, just so that everybody knows, or not everybody, but people know that there is some help out there. There's resources available, and there's probably somebody out there too that would genuinely just sit down and talk with you and let them just, go through the motions and vent, and express how they're feeling. And I think that, when we're talking about social media and some of the things that you have brought up, there's so many different factors, especially in the construction, and it was staggering to hear, how prevalent this situation is in our industry, so be sure that these resources are shared. Be sure that your workforce out there, or your inner office, or your peers know that you're there to help them. And if there's anything that we can provide as a tool in a toolbox, we want to be able to get it out. So thank you so much, John, for joining us today. A great presentation. Thank you to all of the group for joining us today. Don't forget, we've got a few events coming up. We got State of the Industry dinner, so our contractor members and industry partners, if you're not yet registered for that, let's get jumped into that. Our next safety forum, hold on, let me pull it up here, is scheduled for 2023, scheduled for October 25th, and we're going to be covering winter driving and fleet maintenance. We will not have a November this year, and then in December we're going to cover arc flash. So reach out to us, IECRM.org. Give us a call. Hit the email, paul@IECRM.org, if there's any subject matter or any safety topic or anything you would like for IEC Rocky Mountain to focus in on. Please let us know, and we'll see if we can make it happen. So unless there's any other questions.
Paul, just a quick reminder for our members today that we do have the Federated Risk Management happening tomorrow here at IECRM.
Thank you, Holly. Which is an also very important subject matter. So thank you for throwing that in there. Any other announcements or updates? If not, I'm going to give you back 5 minutes of your morning and wish you a happy Wednesday. John, thank you so much again. Really appreciate it. We're going to go ahead and close today's session out. Thank you so much. Thanks for everybody for joining us, and we'll get a recap out to you real soon.